Hello, Sifu Alan Baker. As Jay said, I'm a lifetime martial artist. Been in the martial arts industry for over 44 years now. In the early 90s, I started teaching full-time, became a professional martial artist. And by the mid to late 90s, I got to the point financially where I could afford to start to travel and train with some of the best martial artists in the world. And that brought me through to this day. And so today, one of the things I want to talk about is the warrior's perspective, or commonly referred to as just becoming a black belt in all aspects of your life. My journey started when I was a young man, and my school teacher sent a letter home to my mom, or to my parents, and that letter said, "Could you please drug this kid and help us to control him?" So fortunately for me, Mom decided not to go that route, but she knew she had to do something. I was a handful. And she started looking around for some options, which brought her to the local martial arts academy. So just before my 11th birthday, I got introduced to Mr. Brenhelms and his two sons. Now, I emphasize his two sons because this was my first class, by the way. But before the end of the night, they had me in front of these two kids that grew up in the martial arts to fight them, to spar with them. I don't know, I guess maybe I just deserved it. Maybe Mom whispered in Mr. Helm's ear, I don't know. But let me tell you something, those guys beat me senseless that day. It was a defining moment for me. I absolutely loved it. You see, I got to go to this class and I got to do things in class that would normally land me in the principal's office at school. And I got to do it at an intensity level that would normally get me in trouble at home. These were my people. I knew at that moment that this is what I was going to do for the rest of my life. So moving forward from there, around the age of 14, I was doing odd jobs, mowing yards, washing cars, raking leaves in my community just to make extra money to help my parents pay for me to be a member at all of the martial arts academies in the small town that I grew up in. Instead of football, soccer, baseball, for me it was Tung Sudo, Taekwondo, Burmese Bondo, Fire and Water Kung Fu. Moving forward to about my 19th year, I had achieved advanced rank in about 4 different martial arts systems. And it was at this point that I got into probably one of the biggest fights of my life. You should have seen the size of this guy. He was big as a truck. And he literally was a truck. It was about 4.5 tons of construction vehicle that was owned by one of the largest construction companies in the United States. And this vehicle had made its way into my lane and had just hit me head on at a high rate of speed. I remember coming back into consciousness. I hadn't opened my eyes yet, but I was aware of my breath, and I went to take a breath. And I felt a pain in my ribs. I knew that I had broken something in the impact. As I opened my eyes up, one of the first things I noticed that was odd is the steering wheel was no longer in the position it was supposed to be in. Instead, it was pinned up against my torso. I reached up with my right hand to test it to see if I could move it, and that's when I felt the pain in my right hand. I had crushed it into the dashboard during the impact. So as my world started to open up a little bit, I looked up to the windshield, and it was a crumpled up mess. The glass was broken, half gone, and the hood of the car was crumpled up in front of it. And I looked to my left to look at the door, and it was half the size that it was supposed to be. Glass everywhere, just twisted metal. So at that point, I was I determined that I need to get out of this car. So I started to push against the steering wheel, drive myself back in the seat. I could feel my knees against the dash, just trying to move and make some space to get out. And I was unable to do so. So I was trapped. So the next thing I thought was maybe someone will come. Unfortunately, this had just happened on a back road in a small town in Tennessee. I didn't see anyone. What felt like an eternity. That's when I looked to my right to see my passenger. She had gone through the windshield, and the only thing that stopped her from exiting the vehicle was that crumpled up hood. She had come back into the car and she was leaning forward onto the dash, and her head was turned toward me. I remember this because to this day I still can see her face. Her eyes were open. I could see that she was still breathing, but there was nobody there. At that moment, my perspective of the situation completely changed. I knew I had to get out of that vehicle. So I took action and fought my way out of that car. I was looking around to find someone, went down through a yard to a house, knocked on the door, and a lady answered the door. And I noticed right away she took 2 steps back when she saw me and went like this. And that's when I realized something has probably happened to my head. I reached up to touch my face, and when I pulled it away, it was covered in fresh blood. I immediately looked down. I could see it on the front of me, and I'd already started creating a puddle on her porch. I actually apologized to her about that later. I said, I just had a wreck out here. Could you call somebody? Call for help. And then I took off back toward the car. My goal was just sit with my passenger until help arrived. So I did that to the best of my ability until a paramedic arrived, and the last thing I remember is him putting his hand on my shoulder, and I was gone, passed out. I didn't wake up until a day later in the hospital. And if you're curious, she made it, she's fine. And moving forward from there were several surgeries, an extensive lawsuit, physical therapy, and eventually I ended up in a doctor's office having a conversation with the doc about how, due to the implant that they had to put into my face to give me a nose and the severe brain damage, there could be no more impact to your head. This dude's telling this to a martial artist. No more rough sports, no more rough housing at home, and definitely no more martial arts. I was crushed. I mean, I did not have a plan B at all. This information was being echoed to me from everyone. My parents, obviously the doc, my best friends. Dude, you can't do it. It's just the way it is. You got to find something else. And it's probably one of the lowest points of my life. One of my instructors visited me at that time, Coach Mike, and he said something to me that stuck with me for the rest of my life after that. That he was the only one that countered the narrative. If you haven't figured it out yet, I'd said screw it and did it anyway. He said, Alan, you can achieve anything you want to in life. All you have to do is determine those tools of achievement that you used prior to this event that brought you to that point. You achieve different things in the academy and on the mat. Use those same skills moving forward in life and keep achieving. And that's what I did. For me, there's a series of these, And today, due to time, I'm only going to be able to discuss one of them. Perspective, your mindset. The cool thing about perspective is we're in charge of it, right? We can control it. We can mold it to be what we need it to be, to help us achieve what we want to achieve. Just like for me, when I looked to my right in that vehicle, prior to turning my head to the right, I was stuck. I was just going to wait on somebody to come help me. But as soon as I saw what was going on in the vehicle, my whole world changed. My perspective, my mindset, everything changed. So how do we practice the skill set of perspective? Just like on the Martial Arts Academy floor, it's a small daily practice. And we practice those small things on a regular basis until we can build it up, that the tool is strong enough that we can apply it to the big problems in life. So some of the daily tools that I use, one is breath. In the martial arts, I've had a lot of different instructors. And across the board, all of them spoke about how proper breath can help you control your body, your emotion, and your mind. I commonly will say the breath is the bridge of control. So learn proper breath. I don't have the time to go into the full method of doing it, but basically a low, deep breath. Anytime you are faced with something, to me, that is one of the first switches I do to start to deal with it. I did that right before I walked up here. Next is that internal dialogue, that little voice in your head. How is that a daily practice? One, you have to become aware of it. Most of the time, for me, what gives that little voice power is the fact that I'm distracted. I'm in the cell phone, watching TV, dealing with drama. Nobody has drama in life, right? Never. I think that guy knows that, because those are the moments in life he'll sneak up behind me and whisper in my ear. He'll say, "You can't." And if I'm distracted, I don't even notice sometimes. And I'll take that in, and I end up taking action on that. So for me, one of the daily tools is just to take the time to be aware of that internal dialogue. What's he saying? Because the cool thing about that is we've got control over that too. Once I become aware of it, I can go, "No, this is what you're going to say. Here's your card, read it." Another tool is to determine what you can control in a situation. Makes me think of Jiu-Jitsu, a grappling system. It's pretty common in Jiu-Jitsu that you'll get a larger, leaner, younger opponent trying to pin you down. And it can be tough. Lots of pressure. And you'll start to try things and they're not working. If you get overly caught up on those things that are not working, the pressure, the stress of that guy, then there's no room in your head to start to pick out those little things that you can control. Take a breath and look for those little things you can control. Because I'm here to tell you, just like getting out of that vehicle, those little things will add up and give you some guidance or a method to make it through that situation. Practice gratitude. For me, this is a daily routine, sometimes referred to as a morning routine. One of the things I'll do is just a gratitude drill. I spend about 5 minutes a day on it because it helps set the landscape for the day. It sets the tone, the energy for the rest of the day. I'll start internally and then move out thinking about my world and what I'm grateful for. First time I did it, it wasn't a huge list, but the more you practice, the better you get. And when I'm doing this drill, I can't help but smile. It helps me focus on the positive. You do this enough on a daily basis, it'll start to set your tone for your whole day, and you'll carry it with you. It helps build that perspective from the morning on. And mentors. You ever have that one guy in your inner circle? You almost dread to meet him. He's a good friend, but I kind of dread when that guy's coming over because he sticks on me and I can't get rid of it. The opposite exists too. Find those individuals that help you build a good mindset, a good perspective. Hopefully you have at least one of those in your life now. Give them time and energy. I invite those guys over on a regular basis because it'll affect the overall perspective. All right, I'll leave you with this. This is a saying that I refer to in martial arts quite often. All systems are designed by man for man. Therefore, man is ultimately the answer and not the system, not the problem, not your surroundings. You are the answer. So, take a breath. Determine what you can control and take positive action. Thank you.